Welcome to this very easy guide to create opening balances in QuickBooks Online. On the screen is my trial balance, just including my balance sheet accounts. I could actually include my profit and loss categories if I want to use them for comparisons in the future year. I'm going to start off looking at my debtors and creditors. Now remember, if you are VAT registered, you need to account for sales tax. Ensure that setting is enabled first. From the gear icon, I'll go to Tools and choose to import data. We're going to be importing invoices for our debtors and we're going to be importing the bills for our creditors. For each type of import, you can see a preview of what is actually required and you can also download a sample. For my bills, I'm coding all to cost of sales. I'm coding all of my invoices to services. The requirement to separate the VAT will depend on whether you've already accounted for the VAT on a previously filed VAT return or whether you're on cash or accrual basis. After importing my customers and suppliers, I can run a trial balance and I can see that I have the correct figures in place for my customers, my debtors, and my suppliers, my creditors. Because the VAT was separated on those transactions, the VAT control was also updated. What I'm going to do next is actually create a journal to adjust for the entries made for the sales and purchases. I've reversed the sales to the account opening balance equity or retained profit balance forward, depending how it's created in your QuickBooks file. And the same for my purchases, reverse the cost of sales to retained profit balance forward. Just checking my trial balance again now. My debtors and creditor balances are correct. My sales and cost of sales have been zeroed out and I'm left with a balance in retained profit balance forward. Back to our trial balance. We've now dealt with our debtors and creditors and actually the VAT at the same time. So now what we're going to do is just take a look at the bank balance of $5,000. The journal on the screen accounts for the cleared funds per the bank statement, any uncleared transactions, uncleared payments, uncleared deposits, the balance adjusting to opening balance equity or retained profit balance forward. Just checking my trial balance again. My business account agrees to my year-end accounts. My debtors and creditors agree, so does my VAT. I'm just left with an amount now in opening balance equity. Just going back to my original trial balance, my bank, debtors, creditors, VAT have been sorted, but I'm actually going to take this entire trial balance and import it in the same way that I can import a bank file. Here's my trial balance with a date column added on the far left hand side. I've also removed the totals from the bottom. I'll need to save this file as a CSV in order for me to be able to import it through the bank feature. First of all, I have my trial balance which I need to import. I'm going to import this file into a temporary bank account. The one I have here I've called Contra Control and it should equal 0 when I've finished using it. My dates and description have mapped across and I'm using the two columns for debits and credits. When coding the entries from the bank import, any of the categories that we've already dealt with, the debtors, the creditors, the VAT, the bank, all of those need to be coded to opening balance equity or retained profit balance forward. So debtors, creditors, VAT, bank, all to the opening balance or retained profit balance forward. For every amount remaining, simply code to the category per the trial balance. So the bank detail, fixture fittings is going to fixture fittings. Computer equipment depreciation is going to computer equipment depreciation, and so on. Once you've entered all of the bank transactions from the bank import, the balance on your Contra Control will be 0. Now when I run my trial balance at my year end of 30th of September here is exactly as it needs to be. I've got some additional categories like the Contra Control bank account which I can make inactive. I've also got the opening balance, the retained profit balance forward account, that agrees to nil as it should be. And I can also reconcile this account. To make your life even easier moving forward, perhaps consider connecting nettTracker to your QuickBooks Online company file. You can import your existing fixed asset register so that it reconciles to the balance sheet that you have in QuickBooks. All fixed assets held on the nettTracker fixed asset register will have depreciation calculated against them, and journals will be automatically created in QuickBooks for you. Just to summarise, when dealing with opening balances for QuickBooks Online, first we want to enable VAT multi-currency if necessary. Then we use the import tools to import our debtors and creditors, the unpaid invoices and the unpaid bills. We'll use journals to split some of those entries, like cleared and uncleared for the bank, adjusting those to opening balance equity or retained profit balance forward, depending on how our QuickBooks file has been created. We'll use the bank fee to import the trial balance into a CSV format. Any accounts that I've already dealt with, like the debtors and the creditors and our bank, I will code that to opening balance equity, retained profit balance forward. Then we'll check the trial balance, the debtors and creditors to original workings. This video is sponsored by nettTracker, where fixed assets are made easy, very easy.